you're tuning into something different, something deeper. Welcome to a space where the unseen becomes seen, where the patterns beneath reality are decoded. This isn't just a podcast, it's a journey into the mechanics of belief, perception, and the multidimensional truths shaping our world. If you've ever felt like an outsider looking in, questioning the systems you're told to follow, you're in the right place. This is the OUTKAST, the Pattern Podcast. Let's dive in.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. If you were with us last time, you'll know we started digging into some really core ideas about reality, maybe a missing part of ourselves. Today we're going, well, even deeper. We're looking specifically at this idea of telos. That's T-E-L-O as it pops up in our source material. And crucially, how it connects right back to the groundwork we laid in part 1.
Exactly. Yeah, this isn't like a whole new topic. It's definitely part 2. We're taking those concepts from before.
Right.
And zooming in on this key element, the source links everything to telos, which, it's Greek, translates roughly to purpose or fulfillment, maybe ultimate aim, something like that.
Okay.
So our mission today really is to unpack what the source is saying about this telos, why it feels lost, apparently, and what it means to maybe get it back. All connected to our last chat.
Okay, tell us. So last time, the source mentioned a sheared-off spirit particle.
Yeah.
That definitely stuck with them.
Just strong image, isn't it?
Yeah. So how does that connect to this Greek idea of purpose? And why frame it as so, essential?
Well, that's the really interesting bit. The source basically says they're the same thing. That sheared-off spirit particle is telos.
Oh, directly.
Directly. It's not just like finding your passion project. It's presented as this inherent, almost primal sense of direction inside us.
Right.
And look, if this sounds a bit out there right now, it helps to remember what we talked about before. That whole deep stuff sledgehammer segment the source mentioned.
Yes, the sledgehammer.
That's where we kind of laid out the source's foundational views on our nature. Getting that part is pretty key to understanding why the source thinks this telos thing is such a big deal. It builds right on top of that.
Okay, yeah, I remember. It was, it was deep stuff.
Yeah.
So if telos is this vital particle, this core direction, what does the source mean when it says it was removed? That sounds pretty drastic.
It does. It sounds fundamental. The source suggests that basically when we came into this reality, this realm, this core part, our telos, was somehow, cut off, separated.
Right.
And the implication is huge. That reconnecting, finding that missing piece again, could lead to this feeling of wholeness that maybe we don't often experience.
But it's not simple.
No, definitely not presented as simple. Not like finding misplaced keys, like you said.
Yeah.
The source really stresses it requires profound inner work and a deepened mode of thinking. It's not a quick fix.
And it sounds like it's different for everyone, too.
Yeah.
It mentions something about how it shows up depends on your inner resonance or your own frequency. That sounds very personal.
Totally. Yeah, the source paints this picture where the reintegration, how telos comes back, it isn't one size fits all. It's deeply individual. Depends on your internal state, your inner resonance, as the source puts it. It's not about following steps 1, 2, 3 externally. It's an internal shift, an alignment. And the result, if it happens, the source says it's major. You become someone fundamentally different, more whole, more aligned. A change that's, quote, unmistakable.
Okay, so the big question then. According to the source material, why? Why would this supposedly essential part, this telos, be deliberately taken away? What's the logic there?
Well, the reason the source gives is pretty potent, maybe a bit disturbing, depending on how you look at it.
Okay.
It suggests it was done to prevent domination, to make manipulation easier.
Control.
Exactly. The thinking seems to be that if someone is whole, if they're deeply connected to their own purpose, their inner compass, their telos, they're much harder to control from the outside.
That makes a certain kind of sense.
Yeah, they wouldn't be so easily, led astray or manipulated into constantly searching for answers out there or lost in distractions.
And the source also talks about remembering, doesn't it? Remembering this naturally creative and sovereign way of being and an original creative force inside us.
Yeah, it ties right back into those ideas we touched on in part 1. The source suggests our default setting is creative, self-governing, powered by this inner original creative force. The removal of telos is framed as a key moment in what the source calls a fall into density, separation, and distortion, basically getting pulled into the, quote, energetic infrastructure of this closed realm, which disconnects us further from that original state, that sovereign state we were talking about.
The source uses that Adam and Eve analogy, the fig leaf.
Yeah.
That was striking. How does that image work here?
Yeah, the fig leaf, it's used as a metaphor, but not just for, covering up bodies.
Right.
Metaphysically, the source says, it symbolizes that missing piece, the telos, our birthright, our innate wisdom, that thing that got covered up or taken away.
It's like a symbol of lack.
Pretty much. The source even admits that, modern words don't quite capture it perfectly. Telos is the best approximation they use. It represents something fundamental that was naturally part of us but is now hidden or absent.
So if this sheared off particle, this telos, isn't just vaporized, where does the source claim it is? It mentions a trapezoid framework of the torus field. That sounds specific.
It does sound very specific, yeah. According to the source, this piece of us isn't just floating around randomly. It's supposedly held within this particular energetic structure, the trapezoid framework of the torus field.
Okay.
And importantly, the source claims it's kept there, held in place by things like belief systems, sigils, talismans, contracts, and ancient symbolic structures.
Wow. Okay, so sigils, like symbols with intent, like charged objects.
That's the idea presented, yeah.
Yes.
Those things, plus our own ingrained beliefs, maybe agreements we're not even aware of, these are supposedly the locks on the cage, so to speak.
And that's why people feel incomplete. That's searching.
That's the connection the source makes, that feeling of incompleteness, that constant external searching.
Yeah.
It's because people haven't retrieved this inner telos. They're looking outside for something that's actually supposedly held within this framework, locked by these systems.
It's interesting. The source connects this to philosophy, too. Aristotle's use of telos. How did that ancient idea link up with how the source is using it?
Yeah, it's a neat connection. Aristotle's telos was about the final cause, right? The ultimate purpose or end goal something is naturally moving towards. Like an acorn's telos is to become an oak tree.
Right. Purpose.
So that gives us a conceptual hook. But the source material here takes it maybe a step further or deeper. It's suggesting our telos isn't just our life's purpose in the everyday sense, but an actual fundamental fragment of us that's missing.
Oh, okay. So it's more structural.
Kind of. And getting it back, according to the source, doesn't just mean finding your career path. It leads to this really profound inner state. Unshakable peace, presence, and fulfillment. Something much deeper than just achieving external goals.
Okay. Now, it probably won't surprise anyone. The source suggests there's resistance to us getting this telos back.
Yeah.
It talks about they. Who are they and what are they supposedly doing to stop us?
The source is a bit vague on the specific who, just referring to they, but it claims they definitely don't want individuals reclaiming their telos.
Yeah, and the methods.
To keep us separated, the source alleges that whole systems have been built. Things like magic, religion, astrological manipulation, psychological warfare, and spiritual programming.
That's quite a list.
It is. The idea presented is that these things are designed to distract us, keep our attention focused outwards, prevent us from doing the inner work needed to reconnect.
So obstacles and illusions.
Yeah, and the source even warns that sometimes what looks like your telos showing up might actually be a disguise, a deception, potentially even appearing as the demiurge.
A demiurge, like the Gnostic concept.
Exactly, that flawed creator figure. The source suggests telos could be cloaked, maybe in light, maybe in terror, to basically trick you or scare you away from the real thing.
Okay, that's a test. But say someone navigates all that. What happens if you do successfully reclaim your telos, according to the source? What's the payoff?
The consequences, as described, are, well, game-changing, truly transformative.
How so?
Reclaiming your telos supposedly makes you untouchable, sovereign, whole.
Untouchable by those systems.
That seems to be the implication. You stop being like an unconscious battery. You're no longer feeding their systems, as the source puts it. You stop playing their game, perpetuating their cycles.
That's a liberation.
Essentially, yeah. It's framed as this profound act of taking back your power, reclaiming your world.
The source also brought in that Gnostic myth you mentioned, Sophia, and the demiurge. What was the parallel it was drawing there with telos?
Right, the Sophia story. The connection the source makes is about where we place our creative power, our belief, our, authority.
Okay.
In the myth, Sophia's actions, kind of done without her partner, lead to the demiurge, this imperfect creator. The source uses this to illustrate what happens when we sort of Abandon our own spirit, our Telos, and invest our energy and belief in external things.
Like external systems or gurus or...
Pretty much anything outside of our own inner knowing or inner sovereignty. The source basically defines the demiurge in this context as anything you give your power away to, anything you invest belief in out there without checking in with your own core.
So giving your power away creates your own limitations, in a sense.
That's the idea being presented. It highlights the danger of prioritizing external validation or systems over your own inherent purpose and wisdom.
Okay, so if external paths are traps, if rituals and magic, according to the source, don't work for this, what is the path? How does one actually achieve this reintegration?
Yeah, the source is really emphatic on this point. Crucial. It states very clearly, reintegration cannot be done through ritual or incantation.
No shortcuts.
No shortcuts. And relying on magic cannot deliver this. In fact, the source argues those external approaches just make things worse. They deepen the bondage, entangle you more in the very systems you're trying to break free from. The inner road. That's what the source advocates. It's all internal. Cultivating deep self-knowledge, realigning with what it calls great spirit, which seems to mean your own core essence, or maybe your personal connection to the source of creation, something within.
Okay, deep personal work.
Exactly. Only through that kind of committed inner journey, the source claims, will your telos just naturally return. It's not something you grab, but something that comes back when you're aligned internally.
And the result of that?
You stop being fuel for their world. You step out of being just energy for external systems. And you become, as the source puts it, a conscious creator once again, back to that original sovereign state.
Okay. Let's try and pull this together then. So deep dive focused on the source's concept of telos, presented as this really vital, maybe separated piece of us, our inherent purpose, our inner direction.
Right, the core idea.
And the source suggests it was separated, maybe deliberately, to make people easier to manipulate. And it's supposedly held in place by belief systems, symbols, contracts, stuff like that.
Within that specific torus field framework, yeah.
Right. And getting it back isn't about external seeking magic or rituals. It's about profound inner work, self-knowledge, leading potentially to wholeness, sovereignty, becoming untouchable by those external control systems. It really deepens those foundational ideas about our potential versus our current state.
That sums it up pretty well, I think. It connects those dots. And, just to reiterate, this entire discussion, all these concepts, they're drawn directly from the source material we've been analyzing.
Absolutely. So maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to mull over. Thinking about this idea of inner sovereignty, this concept of telos, what external things, beliefs, systems, maybe even just habits might be, perhaps unintentionally, obscuring your connection to your own sense of purpose, that inner direction the source describes.
Yeah, that's a powerful question. Are you, maybe without realizing it, feeding external demiurges, as the source puts it, by constantly looking outside for fulfillment, instead of doing that potentially challenging but maybe rewarding inner work?
It's definitely something to think about, that distinction between looking out there versus turning inward. As always, remember, this was our exploration based on the source provided. We definitely encourage you to continue your own research, your own thinking, and engage critically with these really complex ideas.